Good morning, seekers of light and truth. Welcome to day 6 of the Deepak Chopra Abundance Challenge. So, what we're doing in this challenge is we are trying to develop a consciousness of abundance. And what that requires is that we divorce ourselves, we um, fail to agree to participate. We say, I do not participate in the three-dimensional lack scarcity paradigm that is all around us, and that creates the 3D grid. 3D grid is crumbling. So that's exciting and scary. So the date is July 6, 2020. And we've had a really wild ride in June with regard to the racial paradigms breaking down. And that's still going on. I think there are going to be some other paradigms coming up for clearing. So right now, the racial paradigm is clearing, and we're doing really well with clearing the density of that out. So let me explain what I mean by that. Because the first week of the challenge, we're really focused on breaking up those third dimensional paradigms and clearing them out. So again, it's July 6, 2020, first week of July in 2020, and this month is going to be focused on activating this new level of consciousness. So that's why I thought it was a really good time to run the challenge of creating your own abundance consciousness. But at the same time, before you can really settle into a new level of consciousness, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm looking for a particular word besides settle. Attach, structure yourself within. So you need to ground. That's the word I'm looking for. You need to ground within this new abundance consciousness. But in order to do that, you've got to clear what has been in your way. So, what has been in our way is that 3D scarcity, lack, fear paradigm that has really been in our way for quite a while. Humanity has been struggling with that paradigm for thousands and thousands of years. So, a lot has happened that has made this particular time, 2020 AD, a time when we can clear out these consciousnesses. And really, I believe this transition started all throughout the 2000s, but really after 2012, we kind of went off a cliff in terms of what was happening with human consciousness. And ever since then, more and more people have been waking up, waking up, waking up. So I would say the light workers were the first ones to wake up. I know I had an awakening to the 3D lack scarcity paradigm grid in 2013. And it was horrific. It's like you realize you're living in a world that looks like hell and acts like hell, and you don't realize that your consciousness is what is creating it. And that, first of all, you've been exposed to all this programming, and the programming, the 3D programming, is really tricksy because it tries to look like it's working in your best interest when it's really not. It's really working against you. It's trying to trick you. It's trying to um, feed you so much untruth that gets covered with something pretty and shiny that you want to believe in. And it shouldn't have. I've kind of always been able to see through a lot of 3D programming and paradigms, but most people don't. So that makes you think you're crazy when you're like, hey, look at the world around us. It's fucked up. Like, I'm a Libra, and I always want things to be fair. Equity and equality are big, huge principles to me. I feel like if one of us is left behind, all of us are left behind, and none of us are getting ahead until all of us are getting ahead. I truly believe that in my heart. But you talk to people about, when I talk to people about my beliefs, they would act like I'm crazy, I'm nuts. Life isn't fair. Some people have to lose. That's just the way it has to be. Most people have to lose. Only one person can win. You get so much of that coming to you in the 3D paradigms that you don't even question it, just because you're so outnumbered and so many people are coming at you with that kind of thinking. So the shift, and I would say the shift even started before the 2000s. It's been a slow, if you look at history and how, new thought processes have been picking up, You could say the shift even started with the baby boomers because they were really onto unity consciousness concepts. I want to say maybe the first massive generation onto unity consciousness concepts. So, unity consciousness is the consciousness of abundance, and it's the consciousness of the fifth dimension time and space paradigm, although there is allegedly no time in the fifth dimension. Time is a very 3D construct because it limits us. Think about how time limits us. It limits what we can do, when we can do it, how we can do it. So, time is a very limiting paradigm, actually. But right now, what we're focused on as a collective is clearing out the densities of the 3D grid. So in July, we're working on clearing out the racial paradigm density, but other stuff is going to come up. And honestly, I think the next thing that's going to come up is all the sex gender stuff, and there's so much of it. I mean, the sex gender paradigm is such a huge and old paradigm, and at its basic level, it believes that we're two separate genders, male and female, and that men are somehow superior to or better than women, and women deserve to be subjugated to men in all different kinds of ways. And you're seeing this paradigm come up in really disgusting and excruciating sorts of ways. For example, I don't know if you've heard of or you've seen The Handmaid's Tale. It was a book that was written in the 80s, but now it's a mini series on Hulu, which I watched it because I had heard so much about the book. People that I know were just so impressed with the book and thought that there was a degree of truth to it. But it's about a dystopia where women are enslaved for the purposes of reproduction because humanity has become largely infertile, and so the women who are fertile are turned into slaves, and they're treated absolutely horrifically. You would not believe the sick mind that came up with this series. It's just horrible, the kinds of things that are done to women. But it is true. People say that people who have watched The Handmaid's Tale say, well, this is real life. This is true. It has been true throughout history, and it's true today, and it is in many parts of the world. Sex slavery is a very real, very sick, very evil, very depraved paradigm. And we're hearing a lot about that paradigm and how it works in our world with regard to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. So that paradigm it's been bubbling, bubbling, bubbling beneath the surface, and it's going to blow eventually. That's another paradigm that has to be cleared out. So we're clearing out dark densities. We're clearing out the paradigms. So this week we've really been focused on that, clearing out the paradigms. And next week we're going to move more into spiritual laws, which are about expanding that abundance consciousness beyond clearing out 3D. But this week the focus has been on clearing out 3D. Now it's July 6, 2020, but no matter when you come across this video, know that it is for you, and that if you're coming across this video, you need to do some work of clearing out those paradigms. So let's talk about what the centering thought for today is, and the mantra, that's mind direction, that Deepak will give you in the meditation. The centering thought is, the focus is on internal power. So can you see that? This is my abundance notebook. Isn't it pretty? So the focus, I'm trying to find, where's my camera? All right, so the focus is on internal power. Oh, see, it's backwards. Internal power. And the centering thought is that everything I desire is within me. The mantra is simply Ram, which means a lot for it to just be one word. Stop, stand still, rest, rejoice, and be pleased. So this is a Sanskrit mantra, but there's also very similar in the Christian King James Bible, and that it is when I have certain Bible verses that are absolutely my favorite. So the one from the King James Bible is, "Be still and know that I am God." Be still and know that I am God. That's a phrase that I have use when I've been in difficult situations and it's like things are just going crazy and I don't like it. I don't like how the 3D grid is presenting to me. But instead of reacting in a really negative or volatile way, which sometimes we want to do when you have someone coming at you in a crazy way in 3D, instead of reacting to that, if you just take a deep breath and ground yourself in your divinity, you will, I promise you, this will happen. How they are coming at you is going to just diminish. It's going to dissolve because it can't match the energy. It's coming at a really low 3D angry type of energy. It can't match your vibration, which is the vibration of divinity, and so when vibrations can't match, they don't connect. So, you're vibrating here, they're vibrating here, they're going to just go right underneath you. You're going to have to separate ways. Whereas if you're both vibrating at the same level, it's going to crash in together. So you don't want to have that happen. So I also want to share with you this from A Course in Miracles. I am as God created me. This single thought, held firmly in the mind, would save the world. These words are sacred, for they are the words God gave in answer to the world you made. So remember, everything that we see externally to us is our own creation. I know that's really hard to believe, but understand it's a collective creation. So there's a lot of duality in that creation. There's a lot of good and there's a lot of bad. And where you end up in the creation is how you vibrate. So always pay attention to how you are vibrating. The challenge for today 6 is to connect with your internal power and understand how real that is. We have a lot, all of our power comes from inside of us. It's just a matter of tapping into it. When we are focused on the lack scarcity paradigm, it's programming that is cutting us off from our own source of internal power. So, as long as you are connected to your own source of internal power, you're good to go with regard to manifesting and creating the kind of reality that you desire. Now, the activity for today that I want you to make note of in your journal. Hopefully, you have a nice little journal like this where you can keep down all your thoughts about abundance. The activity for today is to go into an alpha space, and I describe how you can go into an alpha space. It's a Silva method of meditation, and the Medium post that I put in the links below will show you, direct you, give you instructions on how to get into an alpha space. It's real easy. It's just counting backwards from 25 or really any number, however long you think it's going to take for you to get into that alpha state. Alpha brain waves are a certain type of brain waves where you're kind of in between sleep and wakefulness. So beta is your typical normal wakeful state. Alpha is that in between state. You're not quite asleep, but you're not quite awake. And that's where the magic happens. So in that state, your imagination is incredibly powerful. So you're going to go into that state, and then you are going to begin a series of meditations or visualizations on creating a workspace where you are able to write down everything that you want to manifest in your life. And it's going to be extra potent because you're in this very sacred internal space that you've created. So it works. You can try to research the Silva method. It's hard to find information on it because their information is like a trade secret. So the Silva um, Mind Valley, I think, is the online university that teaches the Silva method, and they keep that information pretty tightly under wraps. I came across it in earlier a book that was written in the 70s, and just that book, I was like, wow, that's a really interesting book. Started trying the meditation methods and found out how powerful they were. And then I started talking to people who had done it actually in the 70s, because I was a little kid in the 70s, but these people were adults in the 70s, and they were telling me that all of the successes they had, and they had trained specifically under Silva method trainers. And it's a really interesting method of meditation where basically you're trying to communicate with other people and perform services for other people in that alpha mental state. So it's kind of like a state where your spirit is able to um, walk around in probably a fifth dimensional reality, a different reality than the 3D reality. And a lot of people know how to do that. So it's not, that unusual really. Most people just aren't aware, because one of the things that the 3D grid has tried to do, 3D programming has done, is suppressed our consciousness so that we're not aware of all of these extrasensory abilities that we have and things that we can do that are beyond the physical and beyond the five senses. So, today, for your activity, you're going to go into that created space and you are going to have a conversation with someone that you need to forgive. And this is a really, really powerful activity because A Course in Miracles, which I've studied for so many years, is all about forgiveness. And, I've been through some horribly traumatic and violent experiences with people that I thought I would never be able to forgive. But what I learned by holding on to all of that anger, like I had so much anger inside of me, and it was very dark, it was very dense. It was like a little box of dark, dense energy right inside of me that was so potent and so powerful that I feared in my earlier life. I haven't felt this way for a long time, but I'd say from age 15 to age 30, I had a real fear that I would accidentally kill someone because I had that much anger inside of me and it was that dense. And it was that anger that caused me to study A Course in Miracles. And A Course in Miracles is all about forgiveness. So I really needed the Course in Miracles to help me to forgive people who I felt had harmed me very badly. And a lot of times when you're holding on to something like that, you're not paying attention to this whole other story. There's a lot of factors that would cause someone to behave in a really violent and aggressive way, and it might not have anything to do with you. So I think I shared in my first video, What is Everyday Light Work? I grew up in a really violent home, so I had a lot of anger against my father. And it took me years to clear that energy out. And I did it through A Course in Miracles. I did it through therapy. I did a lot of work to get rid of all of that anger that I had about growing up in a chaotic and violent home. So that's the task for you. Most of us have got some kind of trauma like that. We've got some kind of 3D density that we need to clear, and we need to clear that not for the other person, because that's a lot of times what holds people up. I don't really want to forgive that person. I don't really want to talk to that person. I don't really want to see that person. Okay, that's fine. But if you're holding on to all of that kind of dark, dense energy, it's inside of you, it's hurting you, it's holding you back. You need to clear that out. So, before we go into the next week, that's tomorrow, day 7, where we're working on these very serious and intense spiritual laws, you want to clear out all of the density. Well, you're not going to clear all of it. If you've lived with it for a long time, you're not going to clear all of it. But you do want to begin to clear as much as you possibly can right now if you haven't attempted to do this before. And if you've been working on it, keep working on it. You know where you are stuck. Keep working on clearing out those densities, knowing that it's holding you back. Not clearing it out is holding you back from becoming your most phenomenal, amazing internal self and connecting with your true, authentic spiritual self. So let's get to it. I love you guys. I love the work that you're doing. Continue clearing out those 3D densities, because this amps up in week 2. It gets really much more expansive in terms of what we're doing with consciousness. And then in week 3, we're really going to the macro, unity consciousness, abundance for everyone kind of thinking. And so, it's we're taking these steps. And know that you might have to do this challenge over and over again because you might need to do this work over and over again. Most of us have a lot of 3D density jammed into our bodies that we have to actually physically, because it's all energy, and that energy collects and solidifies in our bodies. So we got to clear that out. All right. Good luck with your forgiveness activity for today. I wish you the best. Love and light. Am Lee, your everyday light worker.